Yesterday I went to hit a workout together with one of my friends, and while we were working out he was telling me how he wants to go to the doctor to check his testosterone levels. And immediately, of course, I started thinking, like, what the fuck? I asked him, why do you want to check your test levels? What kind of result are you expecting? What are you going to do? If they're good, what are you going to do if they're bad? Because obviously, why do you check your test levels? Why would you check your test levels? You want to hop on TRT. Because obviously, if they're going to be good, it doesn't really matter. If they're going to be bad, then there's really only one thing that you can do, or at least in this case, because we're talking about a guy who is relatively healthy, he sleeps well, eats well, works out, everything, and he looks after his own health, which means that his testosterone levels should be perfectly fine. And so I turned to him and asked, why do you want to check your test levels? Like, what are you going to get out of checking your testosterone levels? And he was like, well, yeah, I'm not really making as much progress in the gym nowadays as I really want to. And, I see the weight slowly going up, but I don't see myself growing. And I was like, okay, how much are you growing? He was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, tell me the measurements. How much did the measurements go up? Obviously, I knew that he wasn't measuring anything. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, are you measuring your arms and legs and shit like that? He was like, no. I was like, yeah, obviously, so you have no fucking idea about how much you're progressing. So you really cannot even state that you're not progressing as much as you want to, because do you know how much you're progressing? No. If you tell me that you're not satisfied with the amount of progress you're making, with the pace of your progression, and I ask you, okay, what's the pace of your progression? And you cannot answer me, you're out. You're instantly out. You have nothing to show up. You're literally complaining about something that you have no data about. And as long as you're not taking any measurements regularly, you have no idea how big your waist, arms, calves, thighs, forearms, whatever the fuck you're interested about are, you have no idea about how fast the progression is because you have no data. Just by looking at them, you're not going to be able to tell anything because muscle growth is simply so slow that you just don't see it. Like, for example, let's say you could gain half an inch in an entire year. And if you have 15-inch arms right now, in 6 years, that means that you will have 18-inch arms, which are the kinds of arms that when people look at, they go, what? What the fuck is that guy doing? Yes, exactly. But will you notice it? No. If you would live your everyday life, you would be like, my arms aren't growing anything because you don't have any data. But in reality, are they growing? Yes, and if you would measure them regularly, you would know. But that's number one. I also was like, bro, I know exactly how you train. You train like a fucking idiot. You don't train legs. You don't really have a program. You just come in however many times you can during the week. Sometimes you come 3 times, sometimes you come 6 times. You have no idea even about what the fuck you're doing. How do you want to make good progress? How do you even want to know the progress you have? I was like, you don't even track your workouts. He was like, I track them in my head. You don't. Do you remember what you did half a year ago? No. Do I remember? No, but look at this. I don't need to remember because I got this. Look at this. Half a year ago, I was doing first weighted dips with 7.5 kilograms. So what is that, like 20 pounds or 15 or something? 12 reps, 11 reps, then 10 reps. Then I was doing neck curls with the same weight, etc., etc. I got it all written down here, just as you should as well. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to remember it, and you have no way to track, not even your lifting progress. And when you're a bodybuilder, that's not even what's really relevant. What's the most relevant is going to be your arm and calf and thigh and neck and all of those body measurements, and not necessarily your weight going up in the gym, because those are not completely objective unless you always have camera footage to support it. But even then, it's you who is looking at the camera footage, obviously. So those are not going to be completely objective anyways, because maybe you're adding 10 pounds to your bicep curls over a year, but your form just went to shit. And in reality, you added 0 pounds. You didn't get any stronger, but the logbook says so. But what you don't see in the logbook is your form. So as somebody who wants to get bigger muscles, the number one statistic that you always need to measure and track and write down is your measurement. And then we went on with the conversation, and my friend was going on about how testosterone levels are dropping and how cavemen used to have 1,000 nanograms per deciliter testosterone levels. To which I have two questions. First of all, how do you know? Did you go back in time several thousand years, go up to a caveman and somehow took a fucking blood test from the caveman and then went back to time and then measured it? Like, that is impossible to know. And even if, like, I don't give a shit what studies we have about that, that's just not fucking possible to measure. But let's say it's true. Are you a caveman? No. I'm certainly not a fucking caveman. Are you a caveman? If not, and you don't have 1,000 nanogram per deciliter testosterone levels, why are you crying? You're not supposed to have those. You're not a fucking caveman. This is like when your parents tell you that, oh, in my days, this used to be the case. Yeah, we're not in your days anymore. This is like saying that, I don't know which whale has as big of a dick as me. Like, I'm not a fucking whale. Why the fuck does that matter? So you're not a caveman. So you're not supposed to have caveman testosterone levels, alright? And that was several thousand years ago, I mean, come on. And then my friend started telling me how some guy also thought that he had low test levels, and then he went to get them checked. And actually he was right, because he had 440. And I was like, looking at him like, yeah, that's normal. He was like, no, that's the low end of normal. I was like, yeah? Normal. You just said it. That's the low end of normal. And also, that's not even the low end of normal. The normal range starts at like 300 and then it ends at 1000, which means that 440 is perfectly normal. That's good. That's average. There is absolutely nothing wrong with 440. That is not even low. That is just closer to the lower than the higher. But to be honest, all the people who have like 900 nanograms per deciliter or even 1,000, those are the genetic elites. Those are not the regular people. And you're not supposed to just randomly get pissed about not having their testosterone levels. There are so insanely few people who are born with those kinds of levels. Or, well, they technically not born with them, but you know, they're born with the genetics that will later on allow them to get those levels. And if you weren't one of them, doesn't fucking matter. Guess what? Like, you're still going to be fine. Those people are the exception. And the low end of normal still means normal. This is why it's called the normal range, because it's normal. Everything that falls between the umbrella of 300 and 1000 is normal. Low normal is not something that should be treated. It is normal. Low normal, but normal. Alright, and this is something that I know exactly who started promoting on this platform. It was, what's up guys, it's Derek, moreplitsmoredates.com. It was always like, oh yeah, this guy had 350 nanogram per deciliter test levels, and that's low end of normal, and we gotta put him on TRT, and what a coincidence, that guy has a TRT clinic. And we're going to get back on this later, because it's very important who the kind of people are who promote this kind of message. It's somehow always people who either have a TRT clinic, are sponsored by a TRT clinic, or are selling test boosters or are sponsored by them, or people who just fell on the bandwagon and they went on TRT and then now they're kind of inside regretting their decision, but they have to somehow justify it both to themselves and to their audience. But we will get back on that later. For now, the point is that aiming for the high end of the normal range is somehow so convenient. Like, people will say, okay, you're 440, that's low, which is actually not low, it's the low, and it's not even the low fucking end, but it's closer to the lower than the higher end of the normal range. You have to treat that, and you have to get to the very top of the normal range. Why? It's somehow, again, so convenient that every single time somebody gets TRT, it doesn't get elevated to like 500 or something. No, it has to be the very top of the normal range. It always has to be 900 and 1000 nanograms per deciliters. Why? Because these people want a performance boost. It's not for health, and it's not for whatever the fuck they're claiming it for. It's simply to take gear, and they're trying to justify it. And you see that all the time. Have you seen anybody ever get TRT who got to 440 nanograms per deciliter with the TRT. No, because that's low normal. No, you see 440 nanogram per deciliter people get TRT, but you never see people who get to that level through TRT who otherwise had below normal levels. You know why? Because those people, like the amount of people that jump on TRT, you know what percentage of them is people who actually would need it? I would say, obviously I do not know either, but I would guess it to be well below 10%, because the majority of people who get TRT had normal levels to begin with, maybe just low normal, or maybe not even low normal, but mid normal, and then they got suddenly to the very top end of the normal range. And they always get to the top end of the normal range. Do you ever see anybody get TRT and get only to the middle of the normal range? No. You never see that shit. And then my friend went on to tell me about how it's not only for gains. Obviously, testosterone helps with motivation and all of that. And I don't have that big of a deep voice, and I can barely grow a beard and blah blah. And I mean, I've already heard all of this shit through all of the CEO hustle culture, Sigma grindset snake oil salesmen who say this shit all the time. And the problem with the whole self-improvement industry and community is that a large percentage of it is now these kinds of people. Like, I remember when I was 14 and I first started getting into this whole shit, and I'm not saying that self-improvement was perfect back then, because it obviously wasn't. People had sponsors and all that shit, but for the large portion of it, it was people who wanted to help. But now we got to the point where literally the whole self-improvement community is at the point where the real self-improvement is staying away from that kind of content, because it just completely wrecks your life. I mean, what kind of mindset is going around through the entire world right now? You gotta be a fucking CEO. You gotta grind all day. You gotta get all the fucking money. You gotta hop on TRT because it helps you with motivation. It helps you with gains. It helps you with having a deeper voice. That's exactly why I have, oh my fucking god, in the gym, I have fucking 16-year-old, 150-pound little kids with their hood on. They come up to me, like, guy like fucking this, and he comes up to me like, hey, can I get this? I genuinely have no clue who started with this whole shit of, you need to have this deep of a voice to be an alpha gigachad. But there's one thing I have to tell you, and obviously I am using these terms ironically because they're fucking ridiculous. There's no such thing as an alpha or a chad. But one thing that I can tell you is, if you change intentionally, on purpose, actively all the time your normal voice, you're everything but a chad, but an alpha. Because normal, confident, masculine people don't go around talking with a fucking fake voice that they don't actually have. With all of this motivation bullshit, I've heard it all as well. And it's always people who are trying to get money out of you. It's always people who are the big CEOs who need all of the motivation, because they also promote working 12-hour and 16-hour days and all that shit. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to live like that. Like, I know it's a very outlandish thing to say in 2024, but not everybody has to have their own fucking company, and not everybody has to be a super gangster CEO who works for 30 hours every single day. Yes, exactly. And obviously, when you're not at that point, and you're not trying to work through your whole fucking life to be like the 105th most rich person in the world, then you don't need a fuck ton of motivation, and you don't need to go in a TRT clinic to get the high end of the normal range. And keep in mind that it's also very convenient for the people to say who have testosterone clinics or are sponsored by testosterone clinics that testosterone is the cure to everything. It helps with everything. It helps you with having a deeper voice. It helps you with growing a beard. It helps you with building muscle. It helps you with motivation. It helps you with energy. It helps you with sex drives. It helps you with, I don't even fucking know what else it could help you with. It, you know, like, it helps you with when you go in to your shitty job and your boss sees you and you're like this, you're like fucking, I don't fucking know, 300 pounds jacked with a beard, going to the floor and your voice is like this. You just go in and your boss immediately promotes you. In fact, your boss is like, hey, you want to take my seat? But then comes what everybody always says. I want to do it for health. I don't care about the gains, bro. I swear. I just want to do it for health. It's a fucking lie, and you know it too. Because everybody says that. Every single person who has ever jumped in TRT was always like, it's not, I'm not trying to take cure or anything. It's just for my health. It's just because otherwise I would be unhealthy. Well, I will ask you the question right now. Do you feel unhealthy? Do you feel unhealthy right now? Like truly unhealthy? If you answered yes, then I will ask you another question. Did you also feel unhealthy before hearing all of this shit from all of the influencers? Before hearing about TRT, before ever knowing that, I don't fucking know, you should build this amount of muscle in every single month and all that. Before you heard that you need a 800 nanogram per deciliter total. Before hearing all of this shit, did you feel unhealthy? Before you ever got into the fitness industry and you started watching all of these influencers, did you feel unhealthy back then? If the answer is no, you probably weren't. If you would actually have legitimately low testosterone levels, you would have always felt unhealthy, and you would have felt it way before hearing all of this shit, and you would have already tried to look for what the problem is and then look for a solution. But this is a problem that the industry created, the same industry that will sell the cure for the problem. They have a product that nobody wants to buy, so they need to create a need for it. And they have done exactly that. They have created in your mind the idea that if you don't bench 4 plates after 3 years of training, and you don't walk around every single day with a raging boner, and you don't have a voice that's as deep that people can't even hear it anymore because it's a too low frequency, then you're unhealthy and you have low test levels, and it will be in the long term even worse for your health that is already shit. So you gotta go to their clinic, you gotta get testosterone replacement therapy, and you gotta pay it for the rest of your life, because once you get on that shit, you will never get off. That's why it's a perfect business, because once you get a client, you will have that client forever. Once you have a client, they will not get off because they cannot get off. Okay? I said this also to my friend. I was like, you realize that once you go on that shit, you're never gonna go back. He's like, no, I'm going to go back. I was like, no, you're not going to go back because you can't. Because your testosterone production, that's natural, shuts down and it's not going to return. Oh yeah, but you can recover it. Oh yeah, you can. Maybe you can. If you did it only for a short while. But if you would recover it, why would you even start it in the first place? That's number one. Number two, TRT, like if you do it for a short while, where you would recover it, your natural testosterone production afterwards, that wasn't TRT, guess what? You know what that was? That was a cycle. You know who does cycles? Steroid users. But you want to be on this moral middle ground where you're able to take care, but you're not a steroid user, so you don't have the stigma around it. The stigma that is, by the way, non-existent at this point, because everybody's so open about it and it's become so normal that there's not even a stigma around it anymore, and it's become so normal. But still, you don't want to admit it that you do it, but you still want to be able to do it. So you want to say, oh, no, I only got natural testosterone levels, but I don't have it naturally, so I have to pin. But if you're actually doing TRT, like not gear, not a fucking cycle, actual TRT, you will constantly do that. You will not just randomly get off. You will have to do it for the rest of your life. And guess what? After you've already done it for a year or two, you're not gonna be able to get off anymore. You're not gonna be, like, after you've done it for a long time, you're not gonna be able to restore your natural testosterone production. Maybe if you only do it for a couple of months, then after that, maybe you will be able to. Otherwise, no. And even if you Google it, they will say, oh, you might be able to restore it, but you might not. And they will not be able to tell you when you will be able to restore it and when not. So it's a very dangerous game to play, because once you're not able to restore it anymore, congratulations, now you're essentially addicted, because you will have to use that for the rest of your life. You created an addiction that wasn't there. You had perfectly normal testosterone levels, and you decided, no, actually, I want to have no testosterone levels without this compound, but then a couple of years later you're like, Actually, I don't want to do this anymore, it's too expensive or some shit. You want to quit and you're not able to. And guess what? This is way worse than a cocaine addiction or anything like that, because when you get off of cocaine, yes, your body will crave it again, but eventually you will be able to get off and you will be back to normal. Testosterone, never. Because you need it literally to function. And once you will get off of it, you will never get your natural production back and you will never be able to live again a normal life without having it. And if you really want to just go and check on your test levels just because you care so much about your health, and if you would need it for your health, you would obviously take the TRT, which do you think sounds healthier? Injecting something in your ass for the rest of your life without ever being able to stop several times a week, or just having a healthy diet, getting enough sleep every single day, and then training. Which sounds healthier to you? Be honest. Like, if you ask this question to somebody who's in a kindergarten, he's going to give a better answer than you. You know why? Because your brain has been manipulated by all of the fitness influencers. And it's always the same types of influencers that push this kind of message. It's always either the people who, again, have the TRT clinics, like Derek, for an example. Fucking Derek. I used to watch that guy so much. And I will tell you, those were, if I look back at it in terms of my physique developing, the darkest fucking years of my entire training journey, because I basically made no progress at all. Because I was so obsessed over thinking that I had low testosterone levels and all of that shit, and that training is not even really important anyways, because it doesn't matter how hard I train. I don't have the hormonal profile to support it anyways, because it matters way more than the training. Bull fucking shit. You know what happened a couple of years later? I stopped watching all of those fucking retarded people who were just trying to sell their snake oils to me. And then I started watching the real people. I started fixing my training. I fixed it. I don't even give that much of a shit about my diet. Like, I have a healthy diet, but I don't measure anything. I'm not tracking like some kind of idiot who's going to parties with a box of chicken and rice. And guess what happened? I made a fuck ton of gains in the past year, way more gains than I made in the previous 3 years. So that's the first kind of person who pushes this message so hard. The people who either have their own TRT clinics, or the people who are sponsored by a TRT clinic, or test booster. That's a little bit of a milder thing, but that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore, because steroids are, again, have become so popular that nobody really cares about test boosters anymore, because now you just have testosterone itself. Second type of person is the kind of person who is some fucking Gymshark athlete who has been training for 3-4 years and stopped making gains because he refuses to bulk, because he has to be at 10% body fat all the time, and because of that, no fucking wonder, has a low testosterone level and still wants to make gains and is insecure as fuck because he hangs around all of basically the same type of people as himself, who are also lean and kind of big and look really good on social media, but actually not in real life. And then they're like, fuck, I just need to go to the doctor. And they go to the doctor. You know what happens? Obviously, they have low testosterone levels. You know why? Because they're trying to maintain a physique that's not maintainable. They're trying to be super lean all year round, and that doesn't do any favors for your testosterone levels. They do the low-fat diets and all of that, which is perfect for eliminating your fucking test levels. And then they go to the doctor. Doctor says, hey, you have, I don't fucking know, 250 nanogram per deciliters. We're gonna put you on the sauce. And they're like, yeah, we should. And then the guy will come out and say, hey, I have a choice. I was just feeling like shit lately, and I just had to get on it. It's for health, it's not for gains. And then boom, what do you see? The guy fucking doubles in size. So what is my recommendation? Well, first of all, stop watching these fucking people and stop obsessing so much about your test levels. And as much as you're obsessing over that right now, start obsessing with all of the time that you were obsessing over your test levels and your hormonal profile and all that shit. Use all of the time to obsess over your training. Learn about training. Learn as much as you can about training. Don't program hop. Try to always, when you learn something new, just progressively, bit by bit, implement it to your training. Do not learn something new every single day and then always change your training plan, because that is not going to work either. When just make a program right now that you're going to follow for the next year, and every single month you can change one exercise. Not any more than that. And start actually training hard and not like a fucking pussy, and start tracking your progress. Because unless you're tracking it, you don't even know how much progress you're making. So it really doesn't matter what your test levels are like. You have no fucking idea about what you're doing. You don't even have a metric to tell you whether you're growing or not. You might not even be growing. You might be shrinking and you don't even notice it. You have no fucking idea. And I recommend you to, from now on, cut out anybody that says anything that suggests that hormonal profile is more important for making gains than training, and that, oh, you need super high testosterone to get a lot of motivation and you need to have the deep sexy voice. Doesn't fucking matter, and it's a problem that was created to be cured. It's a problem that wasn't there in the first place. I mean, seriously, if you thought until now that you had low T, did you also think it before starting training? 100% not. Nobody has ever thought that they had low testosterone before they started training. If they did, they probably already fixed it or tried to fix it, or, you know, that's not a kind of thing that you wouldn't feel. Like, if you would legitimately have low testosterone levels, you would have always felt that. That wouldn't just come by people telling you, you know, that's the number one thing. Like, when people tell you, oh, you don't wake up with morning wood every single day. Oh, you're not making 50 pounds of muscle every single year. You don't have a voice that's so deep as a fucking, I don't even know, the deepest voice like ever. You don't have a beard that's growing to the ground. You're not balding yet, huh? Then you must have low testosterone. And if you're like, oh, actually, I never thought about that before. I do actually have low testosterone. Like, no. If people are telling you things that you're now resonating with and you've never ever thought about them before, and you didn't even know that they were a problem, they're not a problem. Same with the morning wood. I'm pretty sure that it was Derek that talked about this once, because yeah, like, he was pretty much mostly the only guy who I watched who was like this, but I watched him a lot. And I'm pretty sure that at one point he said that if you don't wake up with morning wood most of the time, then you probably have low T. Bro, where the fuck did that come from? Who the fuck gives a shit about whether your dick is working in the morning? The only thing that you should care about is whether it's working when you want it to work. Like when I wake up in the morning here, like, I don't give a flying fuck, bro. I just want to go and pee. These are all problems that were just created out of thin air, that didn't exist before. They weren't a problem before, and now suddenly somebody comes and tells you, hey, you know that this is actually not alright. You know that you have a problem. You didn't know it before, well, now you knew it. So here's the solution. Come to my TRT clinic. We will check you for free, and then we will tell you that you have low T, and then you will have to pay us for the fucking testosterone for the rest of your life, because you're never going to be able to go back. So don't make this stupid decision, and especially do not try to justify it with saying that, oh, it's only for health. You know very well that it isn't. You know very well that it's bullshit, because you have your inner voice telling you deep down that it's a bullshit, because otherwise you wouldn't try to justify it with something else. Like, if you would be okay with just hopping on drugs for your gains or for whatever you wanted to, you would just plain out say it. But you're not okay with it. That's why you're trying to justify it with some other shitty excuse that is not real, that especially other people actually put into you, who were also trying to justify the same thing. Instead, focus on training, on sleep, on having a good balanced life, and your testosterone will be fine. Thank you for watching the video, and click here to watch the last one.